Your phone's gonna ring and
Nah.
go.
Sorry.
Sponsored by Today's Energy, brought to you by Monster. Woo! Welcome back to another episode on Landscaping Unlimited podcast, powered by the Landscaping Podcast, powered by Landscaping Unlimited. I'm your host, Zach, along with Coach.
My name's Shay.
Coast.
Shay Brickhouse. That's cool. He doesn't know who I am.
We're going to start over.
Name's on this check, but it's all right.
I said Coast. Along with my Coast. Coasty. Coasty with the mosty. Welcome back to another episode of the Landscaping Podcast, powered by Landscaping Limited. You guys, Zach and Shay here, as always, ready to talk about all things having to do with the green industry, on the scenes and off the scenes. What you're doing on the job, as well as what's going on at home, family, faith, hardscape, landscape. We talk about it all here because we want to let you guys see what it is that we do and let you into our world. And, you know, one of the things, I was writing about this today. I don't know if you got to see the blog post.
I haven't.
Okay. So I wrote a whole article on this, talking about the guys and how, telling the story of the men who build this. Landscaping is a people business. I think everybody understands that by now. But the people aren't just our clients. It's also the people that are in the industry doing the work. All of these guys have their own story, all their reasons as to why they're here, why they get up, why they push when it's hot. And there's just a lot of labor going on, a lot of carrying things around in the outdoors, enjoying the elements. They all have their own why. And it's pretty cool when you actually get to know these guys. And so getting them on here, I look forward to getting them on to the podcast, having a few conversations with them, because it's about people.
That's right.
You know, and sometimes it's about managing their expectations, whether it's in the community or in the company or whether it's a client. And that's what we're talking about today. So what's our topic?
Expectations and obligations.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure you had a clever way of saying that earlier, and I can't remember it. But expectations and obligations, and what a customer expects, what you're obligated to provide them, also what they're obligated to do as well, so that they can get the product that they're expecting. And so there's a couple ways we'll spin this in this episode. And I think there's quite a few scenarios that we're going to throw in there that are personal, as well as some that are just kind of generic. So
now, I think we're right out of the gate.
Yep.
We should hit the point. How do you balance a client's expectations and what you're obligated to do? How do you find that area? Whether it's, I want you to build this walkway for me and I want it to be perfect, and here's my budget over here. How do you balance that obligation as to what you can do under their budget when their expectation might not match?
Yeah, so there's two ways to do that. One is on the company side. You know, you're obligated to do what your company does as their standard. So no matter what the customer says, as far as like, we only want this and it's at the bottom of your standards or below your standards. Well, as a company, you set a policy up to where you're not going below that. So you're obligated to do what your company's expectations are as the standard, and you don't go below that. If your customer doesn't want to pay for that level of quality, then you don't do that job. That's simple.
So you would say no?
Yeah, I would say no to those
We
jobs.
just want you to mow this real quick, but don't worry about the edging and don't worry about anything else. We want you just to mow this section and let the rest look bad. You would turn that client down because Landscaping Unlimited is not going to put their name and banner on a job that's not complete.
Yes, because our trucks are branded, our logos are on them, the guys are working. They have a set of standards that they shouldn't go below. And so those jobs aren't our jobs. Those are jobs for someone else. So if our company's there and someone rides by and sees our truck, and then they ride by after we're done and they're like, well, what'd they do? Then that's not the image we want as the company. So our guys are obligated to promote our image. And so therefore they're going to promote a certain set of standards, and they're probably going to do more than what that customer wanted, which is good for the customer.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's bad if I didn't figure that into the quote. And so now we're doing more and getting paid less.
What about if you had a client who wants to finish the job? Have you ever had that? Where we want you to start it, but we're doing a walkway here, but they're going to do the edging. So they only want you to put on the walkway itself without the
I wouldn't do that job. I've never had that happen.
Yeah.
I've never had that happen. I
was trying to think of like some of the construction guys. We had some clients that they're very hands-on guys too, and like it's almost like they can't help themselves because they think the way that we think. You know, they want to build it themselves. But if they hire you to do the job, you do the whole job or you don't do the job.
Yeah, and I mean, well, we have had, new construction homes where we come in there, we do the rough grading,
Mhm.
we may outline the flower beds, particularly if it's like the winter time. It's not a great time to do a ton of planting the dead set of the winter. So yeah, maybe the homeowner will do his own planting in the spring to save a little money there. Might not call us back for that. I'm okay with that.
Yep.
It's that job stipulation is a little different than some other ones as far as the walkway. I'm certainly not installing part of the walkway and letting them finish the edging or the poly sand or something like that, because that is the part that will hold that patio together.
Yep.
So I'm not letting them do a portion that I would have to warranty based off of their quality. But landscape plantings, flower beds, yeah, certainly we could do that part.
I think it's important to kind of make the point here. While it's sentimental to think like, yes, the homeowner can get their hands on it, they can do it. At the end of the day, if that walkway fails,
Yep.
the homeowner's not going to think it's because of what they did. They're going to say Landscaping Unlimited built a broken walkway.
Yep.
Or something that can't hold what it's supposed to hold. And so for anybody listening that's like, well, why would you take it? Because I can do the work. I do X, Y, or Z. That's great. But like our name is on it. And so if we don't do 100%, if we only do 80% and it's that 20% that causes the 80 to fail, our section fail, our reputation's on the line.
That's right.
And so I think it's important people to know that.
Yep.
Now, another part of this is we've worked with different levels of contractual obligations. Can you talk through some of those, whether it's higher end clients going a little bit bigger or whether it's the state itself?
Sure. So one that, talking about levels here as far as quality goes, because we just talked about quality and how we would turn down a job. We do some work for the inner city as far as the housing authorities go, and we've also done some work for some high end residential communities. And so, yes, there's a quality difference between those jobs.
Mhm.
However, it's still the same thing at each property. We're not leaving unless it's finished. And so we're doing the mowing, the weed eating, the edging, the blowing, the litter pickup, and all that stuff. So no matter what the I'm gonna say high end community that we're in versus less than ideal communities as far as
Well, there's economic levels, it's just like tax brackets.
Yeah, there you go. So we're not doing less work. However, the lawns might not look as pretty because they're not doing the chemical programs. They're not doing the mulching and the pine strawing, twice a year. They're not doing the trimming twice a year, or as it flowers. So I mean, there's less work in the yard, so the yards naturally look less manicured.
Mhm.
However, at each visit, we still do the same set of standards that our guys are trained with. So no matter what tax bracket type of community you're in, then the quality of work we provide is the same, even though the yards are less manicured. So I want to get that clear, that no matter what level we're at, we're still doing the same work.
Yeah, it's 100% effort.
Yep.
At both 100%. It's just the amount of what you are expected to do is different.
Yep.
And that comes with the cost.
Yep, that's right. So contracts wise, if we do a high-end HOA, their contract will stipulate certain things in that contract. And so we're going to make sure that we don't miss that mark. And at the end of the year, when it's under review, we know that we applied the pre-emergent when it was supposed to be applied. We applied the post-emergent when it was supposed to be applied. We fertilized, we trimmed, we planted annuals, all of that stuff within the windows that were in that contract, so that we as a company were contractually obligated to do that, and we performed with that, and we did that. Now, then it comes to the expectations. If the HOA or the state or the municipality, contract stipulates something, and we are being contractually obligated to that, and we perform that. Now, if their expectations are higher than that, and they're expecting way more than what's in the contract, then they should have put it in the contract, because we're not mind readers. So I can't read their mind as far as, oh, they wanted the trimming 4 times a year, but the contract says twice. Well, we base that off of the contract. So if they want it 4 times a year, they got to let you know that. And that's where that little blurred line between expectations and obligations kind of gets crossed.
Mm.
And sometimes people can talk down on you and say, well, the place doesn't look that good, or, I wish they would trim more, and they didn't do that, so we're looking at another landscaper. It's like, okay, I can agree that it might need more trimming, and we've brought this up. However, the contract says twice a year. So if you want 3 times a year, you have to either pay an addendum to the contract or you have to adjust that contract. So there's that expectations versus what you're obligated to do by contract.
Do you have them, if you see it, if you're like, you know what, I think we really should add another trimming in here, do you
Yeah.
bring that to them?
Yeah,
Or do you wait for them to be like upset and then they're like, hey, we want it to be trimmed more, and then you're like, well, in the contract, I'm following that.
Yeah. So one, hopefully our customers are never upset, and then address us from that side. Our guys are trained, or our supervisors are trained, and I'm trained, is we drive around our properties, if we see something that looks out of place, then you bring it up to that person or to whoever's in charge of that contract and say, hey, this is looking a little shabby. Is this something you want to address? Then you put the ball in their court. It's outside the contract. We notice it doesn't look that pretty. We can do it for X, provide them an estimate. It's up to them at that point to now put it in that chain of command of getting approved and letting us do that.
And that gets you ahead of the grumbling too.
Yeah.
By bringing it up and saying, hey, we think we should do another trimming, for example. It gets you ahead of the people seeing the trimming. And I've learned this is how it works everywhere. They don't say it to you like, hey, we need the trimming. They start talking to their friend. Or they start talking to somebody else, or another homeowner, or another person in the office. And they have this whole story about the trimming not happening enough. But they've not told the person in charge of the trimming.
That's right.
Until like everybody's upset. And it's like, communication is such an important thing, and transparency. I'm glad that's the approach of it. A lot of things I know the answers to, but we've got to make sure it's known.
Yeah. Right.
It's like, I'm glad that we are a company that's transparent like that.
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly some cases that I can look back at and I can go, wow, I wish we had got ahead of this. However, we were contractually, fulfilling our obligations. As far as trimming goes, because trimming is usually the big, trimming the pine straw. Those are usually
so obvious. It's right there.
Those are usually the biggest pet peeves, especially in our area. August hits, Lord Pedlums start growing like wildfire. Wax myrtles are growing like wildfire. The Gustrums are just shooting new growth everywhere. And so they want them trimmed. And then the contract, might stipulate trimming in September. But in August, it's looking pretty rough.
Yep.
And so it's like, they're calling, wanting to know about the trimming, and you're like, hey, if you look at the history for the past 15 years that we've been here, we've only trimmed in September. And so, fortunately, we go back and we can prove that we've only trimmed in September. And if they want it changed, then we say, hey, like, we're not against trimming sooner, but we need you to make an addendum to reword it so that on the legal side and the contract side, all this is all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted.
Yep.
I almost said that backwards. But that way, legally, we're good. And then also, now at this point, now you know the expectations of your customer. So now you have that opportunity to make the two meet, make the expectations meet the obligations, and hopefully you can get that fixed. However, sometimes we also have it where they call and they have said in the past, well, this trimming is outrageous. Like, why isn't it trimmed yet? You guys are supposed to do it. And they've never read the contract ever. So they never know. And you try to explain it and they don't understand. And then before you know it, you're at a bidding war with someone else over something that you were doing everything right. And it's just their expectations were higher than what they were putting out for requests for proposals.
So, perfect segue. RFPs, requests for proposals. There are some companies. I went to my first bid recently when we went to the one for the creeks. And so it was the first time I got to see how that was done. And can you talk about, for those who don't know, or for companies that are coming up that have been doing a lot of residential and they're looking to get to go beyond, to see bigger scopes of work? What's an RFP? How do they come out? Who puts them out? Who bids on them? How do you come up with your number? Maybe not exactly come up with your number because each one's different. But how do you get into that world? And again, when it's not an HOA, it's a city council or it's the state asking for something. I mean, I've read through it. These things are in depth. So do you sit and you go follow the bouncing ball in each word to make sure it's all covered? You've done more than one, but I'm sure at some point when you first started, you might have really made sure you read the fine tooth or the fine print.
So to get into that, so RFP, request for proposal, you're mostly going to find this in your municipalities and your state funding stuff, because by law, they want to cross all their T's. Almost said it backwards again. And dot all their I's, and make sure that they're getting the maximum amount of exposure. So they want to put that out there, get as many bids back as they can, because then they know they have exhausted all resources from your tax dollar and made sure that they're getting that municipality or the state, the biggest bang for their buck.
As good fiscal stewards should.
That's right. That's right. And I'll never be one to say, man, I really wish you guys hadn't asked so many people, because I'm also a taxpayer. So I love it when they get more bids, because that means that they are actively doing their job and trying to get more people to bid on this work and hopefully give our county the best that they can. But to get into that, your municipality or government agency around you, state, local, you should be able to go on their website and find a link on their website that shows the bid lettings, shows what bids they're putting out, what RFPs that are coming up, so that you can bid on them. Now, within them, as you read them, you'll see stipulations as far as, licensed contractor, general versus landscape contractor, all that stuff will be in there, so that the requirements. They'll have the insurance requirements, $1 million policies, general liability expectations, all that stuff that you'll have to have, so that nothing can fall back on that municipality. But to get started in that, one, you need to make sure you have your insurance covered good, that you're licensed, and that you'll be able to bid on all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But then you just go out and find it. You either talk to someone in the local government that you're with. I would start there versus going straight to state, and then you go on their website and just constantly review those things. And when you see one, read it and then submit a bid. As far as reviewing the proposals, if it's your first one, read it 3 or 4 times, every word. Don't skip anything, because you don't want to miss something.
That can cost you a lot of money.
One sentence can change the whole project. I can give an example. So, like doing landscape installs, usually there's a very small section in the legend that will say something about maintenance. So you may install the property and you may have that figured. Well, then there might be one small sentence or very, very short paragraph that says maintenance for a year is required. If you miss that part for 1 year, you're now on the hook.
Yep.
And
you're doing work for a year.
Yeah, you
did not price into your number.
So you might have thought you were good, and well, now all your profits just went down because you already submitted that bid.
Mm-hmm.
So, certainly want to read them in detail. The state, for example, they're very long. They're like a 3-subject notebook. So there's a ton of pages in there that are very redundant and are just legal jargon. So once you've kind of reviewed a few of those, you can kind of skim through them and you know that this hasn't changed. This is the same as the last one you did. It's titled the same. It has to do with equal employment, pay opportunities, stuff like that. As a company, once you've reviewed those a few times, you probably don't need to review that page every time, because it's the same.
Yep.
The scope of work that dictates the expectations or the obligations that'll be with that contract, you don't miss that part. You read that in detail 2 or 3 times, because that is where you're going to find out what materials you're going to be required to have, because it'll say materials provided by contractor or materials provided by such. And so therefore you want to make sure you don't miss that stuff. But it even will recommend, or in the scope of work will require you to use, if you have to use steel, you have to require U.S. steel, or no imported steel, or X percentage needs to be U.S. based, all that kind of stuff. So there's tons of stipulations on state projects that you don't want to confuse, which is also why those packets are thick.
Do you find the lower level, like let's say your town versus higher end state, do you find one easier than the other?
Municipalities are usually easier for the simple fact that that's your local people.
Mm-hmm.
So usually it's easier to get on the phone with someone and ask them a question. They live there, they know the area, they know the scope,
yep.
More in depth than some of the state projects. Sometimes the state projects are redundant, so the person you're calling may not really review that project as much, and so they have to do some digging to get you the answer. Whereas the local is usually a little faster process, and you're able to ask questions and get information faster that way. And then it's really local to you, so you're able to go out and review those projects a lot easier.
I dig that. Makes sense. I was thinking the state ones might be easier because they're broader. It's almost like when you're hiring people who nickel and dime you for everything because they're trying to save money,
Yep.
they're actually more difficult to work with, even though they're cheaper than somebody who's got a much bigger project, but they're just like, just go do this. I just want this to happen. I don't care about getting in the weeds with you. And so I've experienced kind of both. I figured I didn't know if town and state were dissimilar, or if state just had way more regulations they did to go through and hoops to jump through.
Yeah, there certainly is a lot of regulations on the state side. Now, what I have noticed, you have state bids have their own group of people that bid state work, and a lot of times it's not just your state.
Like companies?
Companies will bid, state work, and they might do, like, for example, we're in North Carolina. They may do, Virginia work. They may do South Carolina work. They may even do some work into Tennessee.
Yep.
And so they're kind of surrounding our area. And because they are bouncing around, it's kind of like the wild card. You may bid, and you may only be three. There may only be 3 companies that bid on one state job. The next time you bid, there may be 15, because for some reason that year, maybe all those guys weren't busy with other contracts, and so they're trying to fill it with this one. So it's kind of the wild card. You never know where you're going to be. You may be broad spectrum of work, but at times it can be super competitive, to the point where when someone gets it, you're like, whew, sure am glad my tax dollars are paying that guy, because he's doing it for less than what my cost is. And so, you're hoping that they provide the quality work.
We've spoken about town and state. Have you done any federal contracts?
I've never done any federal. So we've done state of North Carolina work. We've had some old contracts with them, and we've done a ton of municipality work. So local municipality, we do a lot of that.
I saw a TikTok the other day, and there was a dude talking about, it's real easy to get government contracts. You just get an EIN and you go on here, and you all of a sudden you make a couple $1 million. And I was like, bro, that can't be right.
So,
and I'm sure there's a way, but I'm pretty sure he's simplifying a much deeper conversation as to how he did that.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's not wrong with, you get set up as a vendor. You literally go on there. They'll give you all the requirements. You get set up, and bam, next thing you know, your email's blowing up daily with requests for bids all over the state, or all over. Which, it would be it's still federal, I guess, state, in a way. It may not
he said he would get it, and then he'd subcontract it.
Yeah, there's also stipulations in there too, as if you can or cannot subcontract, or if you do subcontract, then one of your contractor supervisors has to be on site, at all times.
Yep.
So those are also stipulations that'll be in the contract. But he's not wrong. It's easy to get into that email pool, and then have emails of bids, that you can go submit. Certainly not a problem.
So we've spoken bigger authorities. I want to bring it back to an individual, a very well-known individual, Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the artificial turf and Mr. Beast, where the expectations were set and met, the obligations were set and met, but it was not your normal execution of it and how you handled that.
So
I wasn't there for it, so I just enjoy hearing the story.
Yeah, so to backtrack, beginning of this podcast, we talked about lawn maintenance and how we would say no if the set of standards we would be doing on that job, are less than what we typically do. Now we'll go to this Mr. Beast project, where we installed a lot of artificial turf. I think it was like 46,000 and change square feet of artificial turf. And so that's a lot of seams. That is a ton of jointing of turf. We're used to doing stuff permanent. We're used to seam tape, gluing all these seams in, blending or stitching, rolling them in, making sure that these seams are invisible. And on this particular job, we weren't willing to compromise that. However, this particular set, when we say set, because that's what it was. It was
a Hollywood set.
Yeah, it was not going to be.
We're talking the Beast games.
It was going to be, season 2. So it was going to be very much, we're just filming on this, and then we don't care what it looks like. So the guys, we had to sit and have a meeting of, hey, there's no seam tape, there's no glue. We are still cutting the outer layer, the outer stitch off the turf, because we need to do that to make the seams kind of appear visible. But we're not doing any seam tape, which means that we're just nailing in all these seams, and we're going to make it look good. We still brushed it, but this job had no infill. And so that was also new to us, was why we're not putting infill. However, it was very temporary. So to expectations, obligations. We met their expectations. We actually exceeded their expectations of what we were going to do, because we spent a ton of time blending seams because we knew that it would bother us.
Mhm.
And our guys had worked at a set of at a level that they weren't willing to do less than that.
Yep.
And it actually went a long way with the contractor. He had mentioned to us, like, hey, we know that you're doing more than what we're asking you, because your guys can't do that. And my response to him was, my guys have to do this, because if I let them slide here, they'll slide on the next one. They'll do less at the next
That
one.
will be permanent.
Yep.
The next one's not a Hollywood set.
Yep.
It's a field kids will be playing on.
Yep,
Athletes will be playing on.
That's right. It'll be a house. House is not Hollywood. But got me sidetracked there. but yeah, expectations. So we provided the results that they wanted, so we met the expectations. We also met the obligations because we did what they wanted.
Yep.
So it was contractually, we fulfilled what we said we would do with them. However, moving forward on another project, we would strongly urge to change a few things so that we could provide a little better product that we know we're capable of doing.
It makes you think of the lacrosse field that we've got coming up in a little bit, and I look forward to talking about that, and we'll dive into what all goes into it in another episode. But it's just interesting to think of the ways that you can operate. Like, I mean, we're talking about turf here. I want to bring it over to sod, another field that we're laying out. Sod comes with its own set of rules and expectations. Right. And sometimes, this whole time we've been talking about our obligations and our expectations, but you have an expectation for your client as well with many of these jobs, especially when it comes to sod or plants in general, because you're giving them a living thing that needs to be cared for.
It needs attention.
And it's like pets. That was an example earlier we were talking, is like if you give somebody a pet and you're like, hey, we want to take your dog, we're going to take care of it, awesome, and you give it to them, they don't feed it and they don't let it out, they don't take care of it, and you're like, what are we doing? Why did you? My expectation was that you would be caring for this. So let's talk sod and delivery. When we're done, the training's over, we give it to our client. There's a set of expectations that is now on their shoulders, and obligations rather, that's on their shoulders to execute, to keep that property looking the way that they want it to look.
That's right. So sod over seed, sod is instant and looks beautiful. Seed isn't right away.
You don't get that same.
That's right. You don't get that instant carpet, instant lawn, go out there and enjoy it type, beautification. However, with that, both require a ton of water, but sod requires a ton of water, like right there.
3 O's.
Especially if you're, especially if you're installing midsummer, it requires a ton of water. So when you sell those jobs, you sell that sod, you have to make sure that your customer knows that they're going to be doing a lot of watering. So when you estimate it, you need to figure out to begin with, are they going to water it, or are they going to pay you to water it? You need to know that at the start. This is something that we're implementing going into 2026, because this year alone, we've had some customers that did not water their sod, even after we gave them the recommendations and provided them the schedule of how to water it. And so they had some issues. That's where they didn't follow their obligation to their sod. Their expectation was a green lawn. They didn't get a green lawn because they didn't water it. And so moving forward, we're going to make sure that we implement our own set of policies where at the beginning we know you're signing saying that you're watering it.
Yep.
That way, 3 weeks after we leave, it's not, oh, it's all dead, because you didn't water it. So there's expectation there of a green lawn, and you don't get a green lawn. Well, you have to make sure that you fulfilled your obligation to water it. Just as, if our expectation of our customer is to water it, then we have to fulfill our obligation and provide them that watering schedule. We have to provide them a list of instructions so that they know what to do, whether that's communication and verbal, or if it's written out on paper. I don't delete text messages, so
no, it's literally
it's
like
usually always
archive, a historical archive. It's a living document that goes back, I think, until Noah's Ark. It seems to have all the information
from
ever.
2019.
That's insane.
So yeah, it's very much if you put that sod out as a company, you have to make sure you provide the watering schedule. If they don't know to take care of it and it dies, well, now it's on you. As a licensed landscape contractor, if you actually go through the general statute and kind of read the set of standards, like the minimum standard guide, In their facade, it says that we have to roll it and we have to water it in and we have to provide a watering schedule. It's law. So as a landscape contractor, it is law that you have to provide that to your customer. If you don't do that, one, you're not being a good landscape contractor because you're not fulfilling the minimum standard. And so, and if you're not rolling it in, you're not getting good soil to root contact. And if you're not watering it, then you're not giving it the best chance when you turn it over to the homeowner. So that's why those three things are in there. You have to provide that. You're obligated to as a licensee of the state, and you're also obligated to that customer to give them the best that you can give them. And I think that's important that you remember that, especially if you're a licensed contractor.
Well, it's mandatory.
Yeah.
So I was trying to think of some other ones. Are there any other projects like that to where when you leave it, like, there are duties and responsibilities on the customer's end?
Yeah. So plants also, very much same thing. It's a living thing. You know, landscaping is tough in that aspect that you're dealing with Mother Nature.
Yep.
So, you know, if it's all green, the green industry specific, grass, plants, trees, you know, all that stuff, it is subject to Mother Nature. It is subject to frost. It is subject to droughts. It is subject to too much rain, flooding. So if you don't let your customer know, excuse me, I think a mosquito flew in my mouth. But if you don't let your customers know how to take care of those products or those living things, then they're going to die. And so we have had instances where we planted a ton of plants, and I was taught in school that 13% of all plants that you plant are probably going to die, particularly on commercial sides, because sometimes if you don't have irrigation, they don't get water.
Yep.
When you leave, they don't care. But on the homeowner side, I don't think it should be 13%, but if you plant 100 plants, expect one of them to die. And your customer needs to know to take care of them. Now, if they call you and 50% of them are dead, one, did they water them at all? And two, did you plant them correctly? You have to make sure that you're doing everything you can to make sure that the plants are going to live.
So you're talking out, take them out of the pot, make sure they're not root bound.
That's right.
Bust
the root ball up. Make sure you're not burying it too deep, 3/4 of an inch, a little bit of that pot, sticking up into the mulch area, mulching efficiently around it to hold in moisture and retention of that moisture so that it's not drying out. Also not planting it too high to where, it does dry out. And so, and also understanding, plant roots and training your guys on that. You're obligated as a contractor to make sure your guys are trained. They're out there representing your company. Make sure that you are training them so that they can fulfill the needs that you sent them to do, so that the expectation of the customer is met. If you promise the customer something and you don't deliver that, then their expectations aren't met, and you're not coming back.
Have you had any clients that are just never satisfied with your work? And what's your line for just cutting them off as a client? Like, is it them, maybe lacking respect, or is it just them always just never satisfied to where they don't know what you want, you give them what they ask for, but then they don't want what they asked for? Where's the line there? And I'm sure other business owners are like, they want the business, and they deliver a good product, but it's like the what's obligated is they want this flower bed with this tree in the middle, and you give them a flower bed with the tree in the middle, and they come out and they're like, you know what? I don't like how you put the tree in the middle. You ever like stuff like that? And so what's your cutoff?
Yeah. So one, it's people. You talked about at the beginning of this podcast. I haven't said that word in the podcast since like episode 8 when I said it. I tried to set a record for how many times I said people. But it's people. We're dealing with people. So that means you're dealing with their individual personality and how they operate. You can't please everybody. That's a saying that everyone knows. It's old as time. And as a business, obviously our goal is to satisfy all of our customers. However, I also know that sometimes that goal won't be met, because no matter how much we do, we can't do it. And I've had customers where I've gone over on budget. I've spent 3 times the amount of labor there trying to please them, so that I know that I met everything I could as far as obligations to them, even though it cost me money, because I want to please them. I want that satisfied customer. Once I've kind of reached that amount and I start really going backwards, then I'm like, I gotta cut them off.
Yeah, there's no end.
Like you have to have that conversation. Like, hey, what is the resolve here? Where can we meet so that we're able to leave here and that I've satisfied you to the highest extent that I can, as well as making sure that they're not bad mouthing you and giving them the red light special of they never hear or see from you again, because you don't want to burn that bridge.
Right.
You may need that person down the road. So they're people. You have to treat them like people, not treat them like an item that you can just put on the shelf and move off the shelf.
Yep.
It's a hard threshold to say this is where I'll draw the line. It comes with talking to that customer and finding out, do you think you can make them happy? If not, you have to decide it very, very quick in that project of what can we do to make sure that we leave and you're happy on financially as well as what you're getting, so that they're not leaving you bad Google reviews. They're not bad mouthing you to all their neighbors. So that's as a company.
Reputations definitely matter.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think there's a way to maintain your reputation while disagreeing on something. And it's like, hey, we've hit what you wanted, gone as far as we can go. If there's more to this, we got to circle around, or maybe you can find someone else that can see it, because I'm not able to see what you're trying to get out, or maybe you don't know what you want just yet. Yep. And so maybe you need to step back. Yeah, I think a lot of individuals have a hard time with that part of it, because there's a degree of conflict there. And a lot of people are very conflict averse, where they won't have difficult conversations. And so they'll put themselves, they might be 20% in the black, and now they're 40% in the red, because they're just giving to try to satisfy somebody who, again, would have probably been satisfied if you had just told them in the beginning, like, hey, we gotta pause here. Let's take a break and reassess. What's the game plan? And I want you to say exactly what it is that you're not liking.
Yep.
I put the tree, like the example, trees in the middle. What about it being there don't you like?
Yep.
Some people are afraid to ask those questions.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guilty of this. You go into the job, you sell it. You and the customer are vibing. You guys are high energy. You're talking. You're enjoying plants. You're enjoying looking at the lawn, and they're going around. They're telling you everything they want. And so when you ask a specific, do you want this done this way? Well, what do you think? You're the professional. I trust you. Or they say, just do what you want. You think that is a good thing to hear. And sometimes it is. Yeah, sometimes it is, because the customer does truly trust you, and they've seen your work, and they're like, I know I'm going to get exactly what I want, which is what you do. However, those are also sentences that when I hear them now, it throws up flags to me, and I start asking more questions.
Yep.
Because if you keep telling me that, then you're giving me free reign, but you're also not telling me what you don't want.
Yep.
And so you have to start asking questions of, is this what you want? And really be specific and get them to answer it, yes or no. Because if they don't answer it, well, now you're hoping they like it, but you need them to answer that. You'll end up in a situation where, you complete the job, your guys have done everything they always do, customer will come home, and they'll start walking around and going, I don't like it. Now, your guys know it looks good. You know it looks good. You've done this for every home you've ever done. Same set of standards, same thing that got you that job, is what you did. But the homeowner's still not happy, so you're trying to figure out why. Well, part of the reason why is they weren't specific by telling you exactly what they wanted. And as a contractor, maybe we weren't persistent on getting that answer from them.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the customers don't know what they want, and they expect you to tell them. And that's okay. As a professional, you're gonna have that, because they're calling you because you're a professional. They want your opinion. However, you need to provide them with pictures and resources and explanations so that you can get out exactly what they want, so you can meet their expectations. And as a business owner, a contractor, a project manager, that is your job, to make sure that you get all the information you can from that customer, so that at the end there is no, well, I thought it was going to like this.
Yep.
Well, we went over it. This is what it's.
And having it in writing, having it in your messages, having it, reiterated through conversation, but also not just verbal conversation, but somewhere in there written, like, hey, here's where you signed, or here's where you acknowledged that you wanted this color and this color. I gave you this color, because now you don't like it.
Yep.
And I also think it's important that you empower your clients, and this is for any business owner in almost any business, is like, you've also got to give them permission to tell you what they don't like while you're rolling. Because on that day, I want red roses. I want red roses. I love red roses. And then they sleep on it. The next day, they're like, oh, I actually want white roses. but they're afraid to tell you because you've already moved forward. They've already signed on the red. Like they might be able to get you before you even order them.
Yep.
You know, they don't know that, but like they're not going to tell you at all. And so again, they're never going to be satisfied because they shifted in their head. They got what they wanted, but not what they told. They got what they wanted, but not what they told they actually needed.
Yep.
What they needed were those white roses, but they said red, so they're going to go with it.
Yep.
And so it's, you got to let them know too, because just as much as I'm saying people are in our industry are conflict averse, people are conflict averse.
Yeah, that's right.
And so that means your client, they don't want to upset you because you're doing them a favor, you are helping them, but like whether it's a shade of a brick, like, hey, actually I didn't want a dark shade, I wanted this shade. Cool, just say it. You know, we've had people come out like, hey, what about this or this? Yeah, that's going to be an extra run. Might be a little bit, you know, difference in price, but we can return this right now. We can get that one. And it's not going to be like a full overhaul. We'll just bring that price and just bump it up a little bit because of the difference that there will be. And more often than not, they're always like, oh, cool, that's awesome. I'm glad we can do it for such a small hit instead of having to buy like a whole new pallet.
Yep, that's right.
And so it's just giving them permission to be honest and forthcoming with you. You know, that's an expectation you can set during the conversations you have with them.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, we talked about plants and, you know, looking at the design of a house and making sure that they give you as much information. But on the hardscape side, you know, you mentioned a pallet of brick. We're laying a paper, you know, patio today.
That's what brought it to my attention.
So having samples to provide your customers of actual the color of the brick instead of just in the catalog.
Yep.
It's important because now that homeowner can actually see the color in real life. They can see it in the sun. They can see it in the shade. They can take that accent brick, apply it right next to it and see that contrast. Whereas when the catalog, you know, the paper has a sheen to it, so it's kind of shiny. Yep. Sometimes the colors don't come out on the paper the same way they do in real life. And so you can't see that. You can tell it's textured because it says slate finish, you know, next to the paper, but you can't feel it.
Yep.
And so, you know, the customer will say, well, how textured? Like, is it rough?
Well, how do you describe scales?
Yeah.
How do you describe smooth?
Yep.
Is it marble smooth or is it small, like little pits in it smooth, you know?
Yep. So as a contractor, you know, you're obligated to, when you sell that job, make sure you can provide that customer some material to look at, to feel, so that when you sell it to them, what they're expecting, they get. Because they already saw it. They already saw the material. They already put their hands on it. They already see the color. And if you don't have those samples, you know, one, you can reach out to your manufacturers and see if they can provide you samples, or you send them to the supply house. You know, Site One is great, great for this. I send a lot of customers up there. If they live close to a Site One, then it's like, hey, this is 10 minutes down the road from you. Go check out this product. This is what I would recommend for your house, like before you get there, because we have a ton of samples. So usually I'll bring, I mean, my truck stays full of them. But if I haven't met with the customer yet and I want to go ahead and try to speed the process up, and I've just talked with them on the phone or in an email, then I'll send them the address to our local Site One. I'll send them Daniel or Todd's, you know, name and say, hey, talk to these guys. They're great. They've got these displays from Teco. They got these displays from Belgard, and go put your hand on that product, look at that color, and tell me which one you like. And then when I come meet you, we're a heads up, and we're able to meet your expectations when we perform the job.
You brought texture. I don't know if you mentioned it, but color also.
Yep.
You know, what does it look like? Well, is it brown or is it gold?
Yep.
Is it blue or is it gray? You know, these things, they're kind of difficult to see in the magazine. Yep. When they go there, we recently had someone with their patio go and check it out. Like, oh, yes, I like this texture and this color, because they saw it. So they were able to like stamp it. And so therefore, when you say, hey, this is what we're doing, there's not gonna be any surprise.
That's right.
Oh, you laid it. Well, that's way more than this color than I thought it was gonna be that color. Nope. They go in there like, hey, that's the exact color I saw already. I'm glad I have it. Thank you. Yep. It's perfect what I needed. And so it further confirms also their trust in you, that they know they're making the right decision and they're not just blindly trusting you. They trust you, but they also went and verified, like, yes, I do like this color.
Yep.
I saw it, I touched it, you know, brought more senses into it. And so again, the expectation on you is to give every resource available.
Yep.
Some of those resources is telling them, where are we getting these bricks from? Go over there. You can see them if you don't have them already in your truck, which you do. You've got like a whole retaining wall of different bricks in your truck, and patios and pavers and bricks.
Permeable patio samples with the
you
sand.
You can build a whole one. No, it's good. It's actually worked out in many of our jobs. Yeah. So I think we've covered a lot of the expectations and obligations that are placed on us, on the homeowner, the businesses. Any closing words?
No, just, you know, I think the only thing I can close with on the business side, if you're looking at getting in this business or you're already in this business, make sure you take notes. Make sure you talk to your customer, you know, and you get all of the details written down. because that is important. The attention is in the details, on your job. If it's all about the nice clean cut when you do the patio, it's just as important to make sure you get all the details on the estimate, on the details, in your notes before you estimate it, so that you don't forget anything, because it's a lot harder to fix it after you've already started than it is to fix it before you get there.
And it's a lot harder to keep all those notes in a row if you're not writing them down when you've got 3, 4, 5 projects going.
Yep.
Different bricks, different colors, different everything. You've got to make sure that you're giving them the individual attention, writing things down, putting notes into your program for estimates. That's huge. I've seen it play out firsthand time and time again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm terrible for it. Thanks for reminding me.
I just wanted to bring it up subtly.
Yeah, I'll make sure I do a better job of that.
Great conversation. For everybody that tuned in, thanks for listening and thanks for signing up for this podcast. And again, spread the good word if you enjoy what's going on.